Imagine a prison where prisoners don't want to escape. A prison without walls. We were taught to fear George Orwell's 1984. We feared pain, censorship, and control. But what if the real threat isn't pain? What if we are being destroyed by the very thing we love? If you had to choose between a completely happy life without freedom, guaranteed to bring suffering, and a completely free life, which pill would you take? Write your choice in the comments and let's discuss it. Aldous Huxley predicted our modern addiction 90 years ago. Welcome to Brave New World. You're already in it.
Year 632 after Ford. In the heart of London, a short gray building rises just 34 stories high. Above the main entrance hang those cold, massive letters, Central London Incubation and Conditioning Center. And just below, the world state's famous shield and motto gleam: community, identity, stability. The first thing that greets you upon entering the door is a freezing cold. The enormous room on the ground floor faces north. The harsh, thin, and greedy light filtering through the windows glistens like ice on the laboratory's porcelain, nickel plating, and glass tubes. This is not a maternity ward, but a human factory. The overalls worn by the workers are white, while the rubber gloves on their hands are the color of a pale corpse. Even the light is dead here. Only the artificial glow filtering through the yellow barrels of the microscopes appears rich and vivid, like butter along the polished tubes. This silence is broken by the footsteps of the incubation and conditioning manager. Behind him is a timid, inexperienced group of new students with pink faces. All of them, notebooks in hand, frantically scribbling down every word that comes out of the director's mouth as if it were a sacred revelation. They call this knowledge straight from the horse's mouth. It is a rare privilege. The director explains the system to them with a slightly threatening politeness. Generalizations are intellectually necessary evils, he says. It is not philosophers who form the backbone of society. It is carvers and stamp collectors. Because in this world, happiness and virtue lie not in grand ideas, but in the small details that are obeyed. I'll start at the beginning, says the director, leading them to the incubation machines. Here, in shelves full of numbered test tubes, lies the future of humanity. Male gametes kept at blood temperature, and eggs held at exactly 35 degrees, because exact blood temperature causes sterility. Even rams cannot produce lambs if they become thermogenic. Welcome to Daily Books. Today, we open the doors to that sterile dystopia, Brave New World, written by Aldous Huxley in 1932, but growing closer to reality with each passing day. If you are ready, let's open the first vial. The tour of the world starts at the fertilization chamber. It is managed with surgical precision. The ovaries that have been cut out are kept alive and developed at the optimum temperature and salinity. But the real revolution takes place after fertilization, the Buchanovsky process. Once upon a time, an egg meant an embryo, meant an adult. But with this process, an egg buds, divides again. It can produce between 8 and 96 buds. Imagine what nature can do in 30 years, this factory does in a single operation. 96 humans from a single egg. The director describes this as one of the greatest tools for social stability. Why? Because standard factories need standard workers, meaning millions of identical twins. Then we move to the bottling room. Here, fresh pieces of pig peritoneum are cut and placed into bottles.
The embryos are no longer anonymous. They are labeled. Their heredity, date of fertilization, and the Bokanovsky group they belong to are stamped onto the bottles. But not everyone is born equal, bottled equally. While alphas and betas are sprinkled and develop in bottles, a terrible fate awaits the lower classes. In the blood-red darkness of the embryo storage, epsilon embryos are given less oxygen. As the director says, an epsilon embryo must have an epsilon environment as well as an epsilon heredity. As oxygen decreases, the brain withers, the skeleton weakens, because a sewer worker has no need for intelligence, only obedience. Not only physical, but mental torture also begins in the cradle. Neo-Pavlovian conditioning rooms, colorful flowers and books are laid out on the floor. When the babies, 8-month-old deltas, crawl towards the flowers and books, a button is pressed. A deafening siren sounds, followed by an electric shock. The children writhe in terror. This lesson is repeated 200 times. What is the goal? They should not love books, so they don't waste time. They should not love flowers, that is, free nature, so consumption increases. People should use transport to go to the countryside, but when they get there, they should hate nature. And the final blow, hypnopedia, education in sleep. On the 14th floor, 80 cribs are lined up side by side. Voices whisper incessantly from under the pillows. Alpha children wear gray. They work much harder than us because they are very intelligent. I am very happy to be a beta, the voice continues. Deltas wear khaki. I don't want to play with deltas. And epsilons are even worse. They're too stupid to read or write. They wear black. These whispers are repeated every night for 12 years. Eventually, the child's mind becomes the sum of these suggestions. Now, that child is the person the system wants them to be. Among the gears of this flawless machine, there is a squeaking cog, Bernard Marx. He is an alpha plus, meaning he possesses the highest intellect in society. But physically, he is as short and frail as a gamma. Whispers circulate in the corridors. Alcohol was accidentally mixed into his blood during bottling. This physical defect isolates Bernard. Having to look up at his own class, the alphas, breeds deep anger and an inferiority complex within him. Bernard's only true friend is Helmholtz Watson, another oddball like himself. But Helmholtz's problem isn't physical. He is too intelligent. He teaches at the College of Emotional Engineering, writes slogans, but there is an indescribable emptiness inside him. I want to use words like X-rays, he tells Bernard. Words that penetrate, pierce, burn. But what shall I write about? Nothingness? Both are lonely souls suffering the pain of being individuals in this happy world. Bernard's incompatibility with the system becomes clear during the ritual of solidarity he attends. 12 people gather around a table. A soma cup filled with strawberry ice cream is passed around. Drums begin to beat. The aim is to melt 12 separate individuals into one great being. While everyone else shouts, "I feel it coming," and loses themselves, Bernard feels nothing. He just looks at Morgana Rothschild, whose eyebrows are joined, and feels nauseous. But he lies too. He shouts, "I feel it," because in this society, honest unhappiness is the greatest crime. And Lenina Crown, the woman Bernard desires but can never understand. Lenina is pneumatic, meaning plump and always ready for use. When Bernard takes her flying over the ocean in stormy weather, she only wants to watch the sea. She wants silence. "I just want to be myself, Lenina," he says, "not a cell in the social body." Lenina is horrified. "That's dreadful," she says, and immediately turns on the radio. Because silence leads to thinking. Thinking leads to unhappiness. Bernard goes to the director's office to ask permission to take Lenina to the Savage Reservation. This moment will change Bernard's destiny. As the director signs the permission, he unintentionally recounts his own past. 20 years ago, he too had gone to the reservation. He lost his blonde beta daughter there. "I searched for her, but couldn't find her," says the director, his voice trembling. Then he suddenly realizes his mistake. He has revealed his feelings to a subordinate. He turns to Bernard angrily and threatens him. "If your strange behavior continues, I will send you to Iceland. You will live there, isolated from society." Bernard leaves the room not with fear, but with a strange sense of triumph. He is now important because he has an enemy. And so the journey begins. They cross the ocean in the blue Pacific rocket and arrive in New Mexico. The boundary of the separate zone is surrounded by a high-voltage fence. Touching it means instant death. There is no civilization inside. Inside, there is aging, illness, and childbirth. As Bernard and Lenina step into that dark world beyond the barbed wire, they do not yet realize they are preparing their own end.
When the border is crossed, the world changes. Bernard and Lenina step into Malpais, or the bad place. It is like a rubbish dump forgotten by the world state. Dust, dogs, flies, and that unbearable smell. Lenina sees old age for the first time in her life. Toothless mouths, wrinkled skin, disease. "Civilization is sterilization," she whispers in horror. Yet here, there is no sterilization. Here, there is only naked, dirty, savage life. When they reach the village square, they witness a hair-raising ritual. Drums. The relentless rhythm reminds Lenina of the artificial rituals in London, but here it is real. Masked men dance with snakes in their hands, and then a young boy appears. The whip cracks. Once, twice. Blood flows. Lenina cries out, "Stop them!" But Bernard remains calm. This pain is for the rain to fall and the corn to grow. At that moment, someone emerges from the crowd, a young man dressed in native clothes, but with straw-colored hair and blue eyes. John. "They wouldn't let me be sacrificed," he says sadly. "I wish that whip had struck me." He is a savage caught between two worlds, and he introduces us to his mother, Linda. Linda's entrance is like a horror film for Lenina. She used to be a beta like Lenina, but now she is fat, her teeth are falling, she's unkempt and reeks of alcohol. She hugs Lenina and cries, "Your viscose jumpsuit, how beautiful. I'm here in rags." Linda was abandoned here years ago by Tomakin, or Director Thomas. She became pregnant and was too ashamed to return. John's story is a deeper wound. He's an outcast child. The other children in the village do not let him play with them. They call his mother a slut. John's only escape is the handbook for beta embryo workers his mother brought from London, and an old book he found, The Complete Works of Shakespeare. John learns to read with this book. John's childhood is filled with hatred for his mother's lover, Pope. Pope brings Linda mescal, or primitive soma, and sleeps with her. One day, John becomes so enraged that he attacks Pope with a knife he has picked up. But Pope just laughs. He learns to feel like Hamlet, like Othello. Words become his weapon. Remorseless, treacherous, lecherous, he whispers.
The tribe excludes him from the rites of passage into manhood, so he goes alone into the mountains, starves himself, bleeds himself, and there, in that solitude, he discovers time, death, and God. Alone, always alone. When Bernard realizes who John is, his eyes light up. This savage is the director's shameful secret, his lost son. He offers to take them to London. While Bernard arranges the permits, John sneaks into the rest home, into Lenina's room. He touches her things, velvet shorts, perfumed powder. Lenina is asleep in bed. John looks at her as Romeo looked at Juliet. He reaches out his hand, but cannot bring himself to touch her. She is pure and untouched, he thinks, when the sound of a helicopter comes from outside. John escapes through the window like a thief. Fate has spun its web. The savage is ready to go to the brave new world.
The stage is set in London. In the fertilization room, the director is about to declare Bernard an enemy of society in front of everyone and send him to Iceland. But Bernard has a surprise. He opens the door and Linda enters. With her disgusting, toothless grin, she calls out, "Tomakin," to the director and throws herself at his neck. Then John enters, kneels and shouts the forbidden word, "Father!" Instead of a deep silence in the hall, laughter erupts, obscene, hysterical laughter. A director being a father? It's a joke of an embarrassment. The director covers his ears with his hands and flees the room. His career is over. John is now London's most famous animal. Everyone wants to see this wild one. But Linda? No one wants to see her. She is fat and ugly. Linda doesn't care. She is constantly on a soma holiday. As the doctor says, these doses will kill her in a month or two. But Linda is already beyond time, in eternity. John, however, gets to know civilization. He visits schools and factories. He sees the Bakanovsky twins working like insects and feels sick. He and Lenina go to the Feely, a sensual film. During the love on a bearskin rug scene, where the audience feels every hair, John finds it vulgar. That night, Lenina tries to seduce him, but John shouts "whore" at her in Shakespearean language and locks himself away. And the inevitable end. The phone rings. Linda is dying. Park Lane Death Hospital. It's a bright yellow, cheerful place with music playing. Linda takes her last breath, numb, watching a tennis match on television. John holds her mother's hand and cries, but there is no peace. A crowd of identical 8-year-old twins in khaki uniforms pour into the room. This is their death conditioning. With chocolate croissants in their hands, they swarm around Linda's bed. "Why is she so fat?" they ask. Linda looks at John, but mistakes him for her lover, Pope. Then she chokes and dies. As John is overcome with sobs, the nurse scolds him. "You're disturbing the children's conditioning. Behave properly." John's pain turns to anger as he leaves the hospital. At the entrance, the daily distribution of soma to the deltas is taking place. Those black boxes. "It's poison," John shouts. "It poisons your soul. Don't you want to be free?" He starts throwing the boxes out of the window. The deltas attack, shouting, "Our soma!" Helmholtz rushes to help, fists flying. Bernard is caught in the middle, waiting timidly. Finally, the police arrive, but not with batons. They spray soma vapor into the air, and a voice from the loudspeaker asks, "Why aren't you happy, my friends?" The anger subsides. Everyone embraces each other. The rebellion has been suppressed with synthetic happiness. The prisoners are brought to the office of World Controller Mustafa Mand. It resembles a university library more than a courtroom. Bernard trembles with fear, while Helmholtz and John remain calm. Mand does not scold them.
One might even say he smiles. First, Bernard's fate is sealed. "You will be exiled to Iceland," says Mond. Bernard falls to the floor, weeps and begs. But Mond explains, "This is not a punishment, it is a reward. The islands are places where people who do not conform to the system, who have developed individuality, real people, are gathered." Mond says, "I almost envy you," because he himself has given up truth in order to serve happiness. After Bernard is dragged away, the real debate begins. John asks, "Why did you ban Othello?" Mond replies, "Because it's old. We don't want old things here. Besides, tragedies require social instability. In our world, there is stability." Mond mentions the Cyprus experiment to explain why society is this way. Centuries ago, 22,000 alphas were placed on Cyprus. The result? Chaos, strikes, and civil war. Because everyone wanted to be a manager, no one wanted to be a dustman. That's why society must be like an iceberg. The 9/8 below the water must carry those above the water. Then Mond opens his safe. He takes out dusty, banned books. The Bible, Shakespeare. "Where is God?" asks John. "God now reveals himself as an absence," says Mond. "God is a necessity when there is old age, death, and pain. But here, everyone is young, everyone is healthy, and everyone is happy, thanks to Soma. We," says Mond, "have chosen a Christianity without tears, that is, mechanized happiness." And the final blow. John stands up. He rejects this comfort. "I don't want comfort," he shouts. "I want God. I want poetry. I want real danger. I want freedom. I want goodness. I want sin." Mustafa Mond calmly says, "Actually, you want the right to be unhappy. You want the right to grow old, to become ugly, to get cancer, to go hungry, and to live in fear." A long silence follows. John looks into the world controller's eyes and takes humanity's greatest gamble. "I want it all," he says. "I want my right to be unhappy." When Bernard and Helmholtz are embraced into exile, John takes refuge in a lighthouse. He wants to turn to God, to purify himself. He whips himself, starves himself, but Brave New World won't leave him alone. A filmmaker secretly records him, and overnight, John becomes the subject of a sensational film. Hundreds of helicopters surround him. Tourists stare at him as if he were a peanut. The crowd chants, "We want the whip." And John, seeing Lenina in that crowd, loses his will. He too joins the madness, that orgy-porgy ritual. When he wakes up the next morning, he remembers what he did. "My God," he whispers. When evening comes, curious onlookers find the lighthouse door open. A pair of feet dangles in the stairwell. Slowly, like a compass needle, north, northeast, east, then south, south-southwest. The savage has paid the price. What about you? Would you choose the blue pill, the false happiness, or the red pill, the painful truth? Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to support this work. The algorithm, like Soma, thrives on your support. If dystopias interest you, click on the 1984 analysis appearing on the screen now. See you there. Presented by Daily Books.